LA is burning, and I know so many of you have been watching the news, seeing these apocalyptic scenes, and just wondering, like I have, why? Why? And I hate to break it to you guys, but there have been some huge neglects and just woke policies in place here. California, of course, is the wokest state in the US, and they have failed their citizens. They absolutely have failed them. And negligence, poor policies, wokeness. And in this video today, guys, I have to make this. I have to make this because there's just so many issues with this, and this can't happen again. So we got to learn. Now, guys, I'm actually set to go to LA in about a month's time. We were going to do LA, Vegas, a bit of the West Coast, and film some cars, see the American car scene, the culture, and get some content. Now, with LA the way it is, I'm not sure what I'm going to walk into, but hopefully they're going to get this fire under control ASAP. I really do hope for them. I'm praying for them because it's some pretty horrific stuff that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, really. Now, why is this happening? Why is LA burning? Well, obviously LA has always been prone to fires because, well, it's a dry, fairly hot climate there. They've got a lot of bushlands in the outers of the city. The Santa Ana winds come through and they can really gust up. We're talking 100 miles an hour gusts, which, 160 kph for guys here in Australia, that's fast. And it is essentially just feeding these fires and spreading them faster than they can put them out. And truly, these policies in California have not only neglected some of the safety procedures they do, like to prevent these kind of wildfires, but they've actually enhanced them. They've made them burn stronger. And it's pretty bad. Now, I've got a lot of things to cover. I'm going to go through it in no particular order. But Joe Rogan did warn us about this. A few years ago, he used to live in LA, obviously, as a lot of you guys would know. I think he's moved to Texas now. And he's been through these bushfires. He's lived it, and basically that's why he left. He had firefighting friends, professionals, basically warn him that one day the Santa Ana winds are going to come through, they're going to blow in the right areas, and there's just nothing they can do. It's just going to burn, and essentially it's what's happening today. It's what's happening right now, and there's nothing they can do at the moment.
I talked to a fireman once. He was telling me, he goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind, and fire's going to start in the right place, and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean, and there's not a thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA, and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it.
There have been some failures here, and the fire chief in LA, if you didn't know, a few years ago was newly appointed, and it was making headlines because it was the first LGBTQ plus fire chief. The inclusion, the integrity, just the wokeness of California. And you know they picked this person because they were LGBTQ whatever. You just know they did. And I'm sure she, he, or whatever they want to be called, has qualifications of some sort. But the fact that when they were first interviewed, you can see it right here, they said the first thing on their order basically is to bring more women and gays into the fire department.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
Yes, top priorities were not fire safety, not fire prevention, filling up the water reserves. No, it was inclusion and diversity. Number one priority. Not going so well now, is it?
See somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
And again, it's just really sad because I have a really close friend in Canada. He's one of my best friends. We grew up together, and he is a firefighter. And I know how strong that dude is, how much training he's done to get into that position. And I'll take my hat off to him, man, because it is insane how tough you got to be a firefighter. You're talking about nearly 40 kilos of gear on you, kicking down doors, going into burning buildings, and pulling out grown men. So the fact that they're trying to chase diversity over the best possible candidate just screams clown world, and this was always going to happen at one point. And sadly, again, before this fire, they also decided to cut the funding for the fire department, $17.6 million.
This is the fault of the Democrat government in California, who has been warned over and over again. They ran out of water because they weren't refilling reservoirs. They cut funding for firefighters. These problems have been known about forever. There's dry brush everywhere. And, I had people tell me, like, it could be a guy driving his truck and a chain falls out and sparks the ground. Could be someone flicking a cigarette. They knew this was a possibility.
I saw an interview where one of the firefighters legitimately said he was at a fire that took out the entire neighborhood. The entire neighborhood except one house. They were able to save one house, and you know what he said why? Was because that house had a swimming pool, and they were able to use the water in the swimming pool to save that house.
Dave Walters fought flames here for 3 days, but in the end could save only one house in this entire street. And what's becoming a familiar lament here from firefighters, the water in the hydrants just wasn't sufficient.
The only reason why we were able to save the only home on this street was because they had a pool, and we took that water.
This really, this is common sense. This is 101 firefighting. I know it's wintertime in LA right now. I know they weren't expecting this type of a fire, but you have to have your basics in order. And I'm sorry, I know, hey, the mayor is on the list, the governor is on the list, but the chief of LA Fire Department, she is on the list. And yeah, all three of them, fire chief, mayor, governor, sack them right now. One thing I need to point out, I was actually going to make the whole video on this topic, but then I decided, no, I think LA just deserves an entire video on the debacle. But did you know LA has the most electric vehicles than any other city in the world, apparently? Now, I would think China would be number one, but maybe this is on a per capita basis. But without a doubt, in the United States, LA has the most EVs per capita, per city, without a doubt. In 2023, over 21.5%, nearly 22% of all new cars sold were electric. And It is essentially the Tesla capital of the world. Now, what happens with an EV when it catches fire? Well, it's bad. It burns hotter. It burns longer. And they release toxic gases. It is not nice. And these EVs, with all the footage I have seen in LA, people just leaving their cars, like they are legitimately running for their lives in some instances here. It's scary stuff. They're leaving their cars at home sometimes, or their second car, whatever it is. They're just leaving and they're going. I've seen these cars left in the street, man. Just whole streets full, and people have had to just go because there were road blockages. Everyone had to get out. And these Teslas, they are burning, and they are seriously not helping this situation at all. Like, have a look at this video. That is a Tesla, without a doubt. That is a Tesla in that burnt house. And, you know, I'm sure the house was going up anyways. But, you know, for whatever instance, let's just say, you know, the Tesla was parked on the driveway or it was parked somewhere. If they get hot enough, they will go up. Like, they will burn. And when they burn, again, it's a thermal reaction and it gets thermal runaway going, and these things legitimately become flamethrowers. They become flamethrowers, and if there was a lot of juice in those, especially the more juice, the more they throw flames out. Danger. And these things are only contributing to them. And let's not forget, you can't put these bloody things out. So if you're a firefighter trying to put a house out, and that house happened to have a Tesla in the garage, well, I'm sorry, man, but that house, you might get the house mostly under control. That garage is not going to go down easily. Like, it is taking, it's like 10 to 12 times the amount of water needed to put out a regular car fire for a electrical car fire, like an EV. You need a ridiculous amount of water.
Sometimes we just take a tank of water on the engine, around 750 to 1,000 gallons.
How much on something
These,
like this?
you know, we're doing 8,000 plus gallons of water, just constant flow, trying to cool them down and stop the batteries.
So like 10 to 12 times the amount of water is required to put a car out like this.
Easily.
An EV.
Mm-hmm.
And LA doesn't have that ridiculous amount of water right now, especially with all of these Teslas and all of these fires. So I'm strongly under the opinion that a lot of these neighborhoods that have gone down, you know, I can just imagine almost every street would have had a Tesla. And I mean, you know, obviously this was going to happen. This was a terrible natural disaster, but these Teslas did not help at all. And dude, look at this footage as well. They've had to have a bulldozer come in to move these cars that were in the way. And look at all the Teslas. There are so many Teslas here. And they've actually had to damage these cars. And when you do that, you can theoretically damage the batteries in them and they can go up. So in having to push these cars out the way, you've potentially almost created another hazard, because these things could light up at any minute. And then you're really in for, again, however many 50, 60 cars were here are all going up because they're all piled in together.
Totaled by flood damage. You can see how closely parked all those vehicles are. And this is a field where they have to store EVs so they don't burst into flames and burn anything else down. And right now in Florida, officials are sounding the alarm and they're asking the federal government for guidance.
And look, again, they're all blaming the climate change. Of course, that's what they do. They love to use that excuse. Oh, we have to blame climate change and we have to do more green.
It is the climate crisis which has made this disaster so much worse.
The real world implications of climate breakdown.
Well, if you had cleared the bush, all the shrubbery, you had filled the water so that it was full, pressurized, you had to train the right staff, you had had the systems in play to handle this type of an emergency, there would have possibly been a different outcome. You could just imagine if all the cars were a Tesla. it's even more of a fire risk. Like, it's unbelievable. And the fact that they want to go completely green, mate, you just simply can't. And for anyone who has a Tesla, the power is out in LA. You can't charge it anymore.
The power has been cut off.
So I don't really know what these people are doing because, you know, if you know there's an emergency, you can fill up a couple of jerry cans of petrol or diesel. It can get you around for the week or wherever you got to go to evacuate. I'm sorry, but if you're in an electric vehicle, there's only so many places that you can go to. If the city shuts the power off, you're up Schitt's Creek, man. You are literally up Schitt's Creek. And again, these people with these woke policies, these green do-gooders, they live in a fairyland where they think nothing ever bad happens. Well, let me tell you, when shit hits the fan, it's not your Tesla that everyone's jumping into. It's the back of a Toyota Hilux, the back of a Ford F-150. Like, not your EV. Let me tell you. And I think a lot of people forget that this kind of stuff can happen. And even for the poor people in hurricanes, like they had the other year, their Teslas, they were all exploding once they sort of had finished the storm and the water had receded. All these Teslas that were damaged from the salt water, they all started lighting up like Christmas trees, mate. And it is seriously insanely dangerous. So I think you guys really, again, you need to strongly think about this. And again, if you had a Tesla and you left it in your home, well, you may as well have lit your home on fire yourself, because that thing is going up. If you have, again, firefighters come to you to rescue your house. Well, I'm sorry. If your car is an electric car, it's in the garage, it catches fire, that house is done. It's written off. It's game over. No point in saving it. Move on to the next one. And I guarantee you, a huge amount of suburbs had these electric cars in them, and it made the fires 10 times worse. I'm not trying to downplay these fires. They were tragic, and they were inevitable to an extent. But these things have only added fuel to the flames. Alrighty, now get your tinfoil hats on, guys. Get your tinfoil hats on. I know a lot of you guys want to hear this stuff, and we're going to talk about it. Remember Maui? Remember Maui's wildfires absolutely decimated the poor state of Hawaii. And yeah, that was the worst, I believe one of the worst wildfires in U.S. history. And honestly, there were a lot of conspiracies around it, because from the energy weapon to the fires were lit on purpose to people wanting to reclaim land rights at a cheaper price. And honestly, that was probably the biggest conspiracy that made sense to me, because if you think about it, these poor guys, they still haven't rebuilt that place properly. And they had like a one-off payment of $750. And just sort of government wipes their hands, whatever it is. Now, these people are still struggling massively. And, you know, they've lost everything. A lot of these people lost everything, their homes, all of their possessions, you know, their workplaces. And again, they got a $750 payment. The place is still trying to be rebuilt. And banks all want their money still. Mortgages still have to be paid, even though it's not there. And so many people, again, you know, they don't have the right insurances. And these insurance companies, they're so dodgy. So all of a sudden, some developer comes through, hey, I'll give you, you know, 30% of what your property was worth. They start to actually say, well, I need to do it.
Here's the real conspiracy about the fires. Like, they haven't done any rebuilding. Those people, they weren't allowed to have insurance inspectors go in there. I don't know if they can now. that people still had to pay their mortgage on those things.
Oh, jeez.
And the thing is, it's like, if you're getting to this point where you don't have anything and you can't rebuild your house and you're fucked, and then they come along and offer you a payment or something, or you get foreclosed on because you haven't paid your mortgage, and then the banks own it, and then whoever the fuck is the developer owns it, and then whatever they want to do for the better good of Maui, they build there, and then these people lose everything. This is what's really scary about it. It's because, like, the way it's being handled is not like you're handling victims of a natural disaster that's horrific and took more lives than any wildfire in the history of this country. You're doing it like you are trying to figure out a way to take that from those people. You're not doing it like you're trying to support those people and build it back. You're doing it like if you know what's really going on. You're not asking for financial aid for these people to deal with their mortgages, and you're not asking for aid from the government in one of those giant Ukraine bills. It would take $5 billion, right? Wasn't that what the money was? $5 billion to rebuild all those houses? That's a drop in the bucket to what they're spending in Ukraine.
You know, look at the amount of money that we gave to Ukraine. You know, the U.S. gave to Ukraine, where they could have completely rebuilt Maui so many times and plus. But instead, they give them a $750 one-off payment, and they send off however many billion to Ukraine. And it's insanity. It is insanity. And are we looking at a possible another event like that now in LA? Because there have been arsonists. There have been people who are getting arrested for lighting fires.
That there was a man riding around on his bicycle with a large blowtorch, apparently attempting to set numerous old Christmas trees on fire, garbage cans with wood debris on fire. He was riding around, and some neighbors that were just being very alert about this, certainly concerned seeing all of the fires in the community. You know, they knew that something was not right here.
But who's to say this hasn't been set up? You never know. And again, the tinfoil hat is on. We're talking in conspiracy forms now, but my goodness, LA has got some incredibly expensive properties. Incredibly expensive. And you look at some of these images, everything's done. Everything is done. And I don't think the insurance companies will even have the money to pay them. So I think there's a real possibility of people, again, getting called out like in Maui. And who's to say there are, again, going to be vultures circling, developers circling, saying, oh, we'll buy your section for 30%, 40%, or what it was maybe. This is a real thing. This is a real thing to keep. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. But let me tell you, it's bad, man.
Fires like this. What happens to the real estate market after the fires?
Yeah, Stuart, I wish I was here celebrating a big sale or something like that. But unfortunately, we're here talking about 1,000 new renters and buyers that have now, unfortunately, entered into the LA real estate market. My phone over the past 48 hours has been ringing nonstop with different types of calls. We typically at the Altman Brothers, we list about $150 million worth of real estate a month. In the past 48 hours, we are listing $150 million worth of real estate. That's how much action we're seeing in the LA market.
But what do you guys think? Yes, woke policies, too many electric vehicles in houses, on the street, too many diverse firefighters. Like, get the best of the best. And are elitists going to come and try and buy up LA again? Yeah, it's I don't know, guys. It's a huge amount was wrong with this. A huge stinking amount. And these types of incidences really shouldn't happen. And I know there are always freak scenarios, and fire especially is extremely dangerous and difficult to deal with. But I think a lot of people failed. A lot of people need to be held responsible, and hopefully these conspiracies are just conspiracies. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and we'll see ya in that next one.